my wife's best friend became obsessed with her. Now, she's stalking us, leaving threats, and I'm terrified of what she'll do next. I always thought I had the perfect marriage. Sarah and I had been together for 8 years, married for 5, and while life wasn't always easy, we made it work. We had a routine, coffee together every morning, dinner every night, and Sundays reserved for hiking or movies. But that all changed when Melanie moved in. Melanie had been Sarah's best friend since college. They were inseparable back then, but after Melanie moved across the country for work, their contact became limited to phone calls and occasional visits. A few months ago, though, Melanie showed up on our doorstep with nothing but a suitcase and red, puffy eyes. She broke up with her boyfriend, Sarah whispered to me that night. I couldn't just let her stay at a hotel. She needs us. Of course, I agreed. I liked Melanie well enough. She was loud and a bit dramatic, but she always treated Sarah well. Plus, Sarah seemed genuinely happy to have her friend back, and I figured it would just be a temporary thing. But days turned into weeks, and Melanie didn't seem to be going anywhere. She'd crash on our couch, always claiming she was too tired to look for a new place. She even started tagging along on our Sunday hikes. I didn't mind too much at first, until things started getting weird. One night, I came home from work to find Melanie in the kitchen, cooking dinner. "Oh, hey. I thought I'd surprise you guys," she said with a bright smile. I couldn't help but notice she was wearing one of Sarah's shirts. I brushed it off, thinking maybe Sarah had lent it to her. Then it started happening more often. Melanie would wear Sarah's clothes, drink from her favorite mug, and even start copying little habits, like humming while cooking, just like Sarah did. I mentioned it once, jokingly, but Melanie just laughed it off. I guess we've spent so much time together, we're becoming the same person. But the night that really shook me was when I woke up at 2 a.m. to find Melanie sitting on the living room floor, staring at our wedding photo. She didn't notice me at first, so I quietly asked, "Everything okay?" She jumped, looking startled, and muttered something about insomnia. I didn't press it, but something about the way she looked at that photo stuck with me. Then, small things started going missing: my watch, a photo from our anniversary, even Sarah's perfume. We'd laugh it off, saying the house was eating our stuff. But then I found my watch in Melanie's room, buried under a pile of clothes. That's when I started paying more attention. I noticed how Melanie would position herself between Sarah and me during conversations or on the couch. I began to feel like an outsider in my own home. One night, while Sarah was at work, Melanie came into the living room and sat way too close to me. "You know," she said, twirling a strand of her hair, "you're lucky to have Sarah. I always thought you two made a cute couple." "Thanks," I replied, feeling uncomfortable. She leaned in, lowering her voice. "But sometimes I wonder, what if it had been me? You know, back in college?" I didn't know how to respond, so I just mumbled something about fate and quickly excused myself to the bedroom. When I finally told Sarah about it, she just laughed. "Melanie's always been like that. She doesn't mean anything by it. You're probably overthinking it." Maybe I was. But then Sarah started acting differently too. More distant, more secretive. One night, I found her texting someone late at night, and when I asked, she said it was just work. But I caught a glimpse of the name on her screen, Melanie. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on. Was Melanie trying to sabotage our marriage? Or was I just being paranoid? That night, I couldn't sleep. And as I lay there, I couldn't help but wonder how much of this was in my head, and how much was real. The next morning, I decided to keep my distance from Melanie. Maybe I was overthinking it, but something about her presence was starting to feel suffocating. I couldn't shake the image of her staring at our wedding photo in the dark. When I mentioned it to Sarah again, she just waved it off. "Babe, you're being paranoid. Melanie's going through a tough time. Just give her a break." But it didn't sit right with me. That night, while Sarah was in the shower, I grabbed her phone and scrolled through her recent messages. I knew it was wrong, but my gut was screaming that something was off. There it was, dozens of texts between Sarah and Melanie. Most of it seemed harmless, gossip, jokes, memes. But then I found one that made my stomach drop. "Melanie, you know, sometimes I wish it was just us again. Like old times. No distractions." "Sarah, I know. I miss that too." I put the phone down, my hands shaking. What the hell was that supposed to mean? The next morning, I couldn't hold back. "Sarah, is there something you're not telling me about Melanie?" She looked at me, confused. What do you mean? I took a deep breath. I just feel like you're closer to her than to me lately. And some of the things she says, it's weird. She sighed, rubbing her temples. I think you're being jealous for no reason. Melanie and I are just reconnecting. She needs support, and I'm trying to be there for her. I didn't know how to explain it. I just knew something was changing, and I didn't like it. A few days later, I got home from work early and found Melanie in the kitchen. She was cooking again, spaghetti, Sarah's favorite. Hey, she said with a bright smile. Where's Sarah? I asked. Oh, she's picking up some groceries. I thought I'd make dinner. I tried to act normal, but I couldn't help but notice that Melanie was wearing Sarah's apron, the one I bought for her birthday. I couldn't shake the feeling that Melanie was trying to take over more than just the cooking. Then, while we were eating, Melanie casually mentioned something that made my heart stop. You know, back in college, Sarah and I were practically inseparable. People always joked we were like a couple. I forced a smile. Yeah, she's told me how close you guys were. Melanie smirked, twirling her fork. Sometimes I think it would have been easier if it had just stayed that way. No guys. No complications. I didn't know how to respond. Thankfully, Sarah walked in just then, breaking the tension. That night, as Sarah was getting ready for bed, I couldn't hold back anymore. Did you and Melanie ever date? I blurted out. She froze, staring at me through the bathroom mirror. What? No. Why would you think that? Just the way she talks sometimes. Like you guys were more than friends. She rolled her eyes. We were close. Really close. But it wasn't like that. You're seriously overthinking this. But I couldn't shake it. The way Melanie looked at me when Sarah wasn't around, like I was the intruder. Like I was the one who didn't belong. The final straw came a week later. I was doing laundry and found a small photo tucked into one of Sarah's hoodie pockets. It was an old picture, Sarah and Melanie at some party, arms wrapped around each other, laughing. But on the back, in Melanie's handwriting, were the words, Always yours. Love, M. When I confronted Sarah, she looked genuinely confused. That's from college. It doesn't mean anything. But I wasn't so sure anymore. It seems like Melanie thinks it means something, I said quietly. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Melanie's words, her little comments, the way she seemed to be everywhere lately. Was I losing my mind? Or was Melanie trying to erase me from Sarah's life, one little piece at a time? The next day, I couldn't get that photo out of my mind. Something about it felt too intimate, more than just a friendship. I needed to know more, but I didn't want to accuse Sarah without proof. So, I did something I wasn't proud of. While Sarah was at work and Melanie was out for a run, I went into Melanie's makeshift guest room. I knew it was an invasion of privacy, but I couldn't help it. I needed answers. I checked her suitcase first, mostly clothes, a few toiletries. Then I opened the bedside drawer. Inside was a small notebook. I hesitated, but curiosity won out. Flipping through the pages, I found scribbled notes, mostly random thoughts and to-do lists. But then, on one page, Melanie had written, I miss how it used to be. Before him. Before everything got complicated. Maybe if I remind her of what we had, she'll see it too. My heart pounded. What exactly did they have? Was it just friendship? Or something more? Suddenly, I heard footsteps. I barely had time to shove the notebook back into the drawer before Melanie walked in, her cheeks flushed from the run. Oh, hey. Didn't know you were home, she said, wiping sweat from her forehead. I forced a smile. Yeah, just looking for the vacuum. Thought it might be in here. She raised an eyebrow. In the nightstand? I laughed awkwardly and backed out of the room, mumbling something about checking the hallway closet. That evening, I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd read. I needed to talk to Sarah again, but I wanted to approach it differently this time. When she got home, I suggested we go out for dinner, just the two of us, away from Melanie. To my surprise, she agreed without hesitation. As we sat in the dimly lit restaurant, I tried to find the right words. Sarah, I began cautiously. Can we talk about Melanie? She sighed, clearly exhausted by the topic. What now? It's just, I'm starting to feel like there's something between you two that I don't understand. I found an old photo, and it just seems like she still sees you as more than a friend. Sarah stared at me, her eyes softening. We never dated, okay? We were just really close. Closer than most friends, maybe. In college, things got a little blurry one night at a party, but it didn't mean anything. We never talked about it after. Blurry how? I pressed. She looked away, embarrassed. We kissed. That's it. We were drunk, and it didn't go further. But Melanie always seemed to hold on to it more than I did. I didn't know what to say. I felt a wave of relief, but also a pang of something else. Jealousy, maybe. Does she still feel that way? Sarah shrugged. I don't know. I never asked. I guess I didn't want to know. I love you, not her. I just didn't realize how much it might still matter to her. On the way home, I couldn't help but notice Sarah texting someone. I caught a glimpse of the screen. Melanie, everything okay? Did he say something? Sarah, don't worry. I'll fix it. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about that message. Fix what? Was Sarah trying to protect Melanie's feelings? Or was there more going on? The next morning, I woke up to the smell of breakfast. Melanie was in the kitchen, making pancakes, Sarah's favorite. When Sarah came in, Melanie gave her a playful nudge, and they laughed like old times. For a moment, it was like I wasn't even there. As I sat at the table, watching them, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being slowly, intentionally pushed out of my own life. Over the next few days, the tension in the house only grew thicker. I couldn't ignore the way Melanie seemed to be everywhere, offering to cook, running errands with Sarah, even suggesting we all watch movies together like some happy trio. One evening, I decided enough was enough. I needed to talk to Melanie directly. Sarah was at work late, so I found Melanie in the living room, scrolling through her phone. Hey, I started, trying to sound casual. She looked up, her expression guarded. Hey, can we talk? I sat down across from her, my palms sweating. She raised an eyebrow but didn't protest. Look, I just want to be straight with you, I said. I feel like you're trying to take over my marriage, my life. It's like you're trying to replace me. Her eyes widened in mock surprise. What? You really think that? I don't know what to think, I replied, frustration leaking into my voice. But I see how you look at Sarah, how you're always around, trying to do things for her. It's like you want to be more than just her friend. Melanie's lips curled into a small, almost pitying smile. You really don't get it, do you? Get what? She leaned back, crossing her arms. Sarah and I have history. You came in and took her away, but you can't change the past. You don't know her like I do. My stomach twisted. I'm her husband. Yeah, Melanie said, almost bitterly. For now, I didn't know how to respond. There was something menacing in the way she said it. Before I could gather my thoughts, Sarah walked in. What's going on? She asked, sensing the tension. Melanie gave her an exaggerated smile. Oh, just talking with your husband. He seems to think I'm trying to steal you away. Sarah's eyes darted between us, clearly annoyed. Seriously, guys? Can we not do this? I opened my mouth to speak, but Melanie cut me off. I was just telling him how ridiculous that is. You and I are just friends, right? Sarah shot me a glare. Yes, friends. Can we drop this now? But later that night, as we lay in bed, I couldn't help but bring it up again. Sarah, are you sure Melanie's not crossing a line? She groaned. Can you just let it go? She's going through a rough time. I feel bad for her. That's it. I bit my tongue. There was no point pushing it tonight. A few days later, I decided to look deeper into Melanie's recent life. I called one of Sarah's old college friends, Emma. She remembered Melanie well. Honestly, they were inseparable back then, Emma said. A little too inseparable, if you ask me. What do you mean? Emma hesitated. Everyone thought they were dating. Sarah denied it, but Melanie, she never did. She used to get so jealous when Sarah hung out with other people, especially guys. It was intense. I felt a chill run down my spine. Did they ever? I don't know for sure, Emma admitted. But I do know that after college, they stopped talking for a long time. Sarah never said why. That night, when Sarah was asleep, I checked her phone again. This time, I found a message from Melanie that hadn't been there before. Melanie, it could be like old times. Just you and me. Think about it. And Sarah's response? Mel, stop. I'm married. You need to respect that. My heart pounded. Melanie wasn't just being clingy. She was actively trying to undermine our marriage. The next morning, I confronted Sarah with the message. She looked genuinely embarrassed. I didn't want to worry you, she said. I thought she'd let it go. You need to set boundaries, I insisted. She nodded slowly. I will. I'll talk to her. But later that evening, I caught Melanie staring at me from the hallway, her eyes full of something dark and calculating. Sarah's mine, she whispered, barely audible, before walking away like nothing happened. That was it. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I was done being the passive observer. I needed a plan, one that would make Sarah see the truth before Melanie tore us apart. I couldn't just wait for things to get worse. Melanie's fixation on Sarah was escalating, and I knew that simply talking to Sarah wasn't enough anymore. I needed her to see what Melanie was really up to without any room for doubt. That night, I set up a small audio recorder in the living room. I knew it was a desperate move, but I needed proof, something concrete to confront both of them. The next day, I made sure to leave for work a bit later than usual, pretending I'd forgotten my keys. As I approached the house, I heard voices through the open window. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was tense. I quickly hit record on my phone to catch whatever I could. Inside, Melanie's voice was sharp and bitter. You don't get it, Sarah. You keep saying you're happy, but I know you're not. I see it in your eyes. You're just playing house with him. You don't love him like you loved me. Sarah sounded exasperated. That was years ago, Mel. We were kids. I love him. I chose him. You need to respect that. Melanie's tone softened, almost pleading. I just want things to be like they used to. You and me against the world. You don't belong with him. I held my breath, my heart pounding. Stop, Sarah said firmly. You're my friend, and I care about you, but this has to stop. You're crossing a line. There was a pause, and then Melanie's voice dropped to a whisper. If I can't have you, no one will. I didn't wait to hear more. I walked inside, pretending I hadn't heard anything. Both women looked startled, and Melanie quickly forced a smile. Hey, didn't know you'd be back. I gave a tight-lipped smile in return. Just forgot my keys. That night, when Sarah was asleep, I played back the recording. Hearing Melanie's twisted declaration sent a chill through me. I knew I had to show Sarah, but I needed to do it carefully. The next morning, I sat Sarah down and played the recording. As Melanie's words filled the room, Sarah's face went pale. Oh my God, she whispered. I didn't think. I didn't realize it was this bad. I took her hand. She's obsessed, Sarah. This isn't just nostalgia. It's dangerous. Tears filled her eyes. I just wanted to help her. I thought she needed support. I didn't know. I wrapped my arms around her. We need to ask her to leave. It's not safe to keep her here. Sarah nodded reluctantly. You're right. I'll talk to her today. But when Sarah went to Melanie's room, it was empty. Her bags were gone, and on the bed lay a note. If you're choosing him, then I'm done trying. But one day, you'll remember who really loved you. Don't forget that. For a few weeks, everything seemed to go back to normal. Sarah and I started to rebuild the trust that had been chipped away. We tried to forget about Melanie and focus on us. But one evening, while we were cooking dinner, Sarah's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I hope he's worth it. You'll see I was right eventually. Love always, M. Sarah blocked the number immediately, but a sense of unease settled over both of us. We changed our locks and formed close friends and even considered moving. But deep down, I knew that as long as Melanie was out there, somewhere, we'd never truly feel safe. The past might be behind us, but some obsessions don't die easily. After that message from Melanie, a sense of paranoia crept into our lives. Every unknown call, every car idling near our house, it all felt like her. Sarah tried to reassure me, insisting that Melanie just needed time to move on. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. A week later, while I was at work, Sarah called me, her voice trembling. She was here, Sarah whispered. What? When? Just now. I was getting the mail, and when I came back, the back door was open. I'm sure I locked it. Did you see her? No. But there was a note on the kitchen counter. I raced home, breaking the speed limit. When I arrived, Sarah handed me the note, her hands shaking. It was written in Melanie's familiar cursive. You can change the locks, but you can't change what's in her heart. I'll always be a part of her. We called the police, but there wasn't much they could do. No signs of forced entry, nothing stolen, just a note. The officer suggested installing security cameras, and we agreed immediately. That night, Sarah barely spoke. I could see the guilt eating away at her. I should have seen it sooner, she muttered. It's not your fault, I reassured her. She looked at me, eyes red and tired. I never meant for any of this to happen. I just wanted to help her. I pulled her close, but the tension between us was undeniable. 2 nights later, around midnight, I was jolted awake by the sound of glass shattering. I rushed downstairs to find the living room window broken and something lying on the floor. A framed photo of Sarah and me from our wedding. The glass was smashed, and the photo was cut in half, right between us. Sarah came running down, her face pale. Call the police, I said, trying to stay calm. While we waited, I checked the security footage. The cameras caught a blurry figure approaching the house, but not enough to make out a face. Still, the way she moved, it had to be Melanie. When the police arrived, they took the photo as evidence and promised to increase patrols around the neighborhood. One of the officers, a grizzled veteran named Detective Alvarez, pulled me aside. People like her don't just give up, he warned. She's escalating. You need to be prepared. We decided to stay at a friend's house for a few days, hoping distance might deter her. Sarah barely slept, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Melanie was watching us. Then, one morning, while Sarah was in the shower, her phone buzzed. A new message from a different unknown number. You think you're safe with him, but you're not. You'll see. My stomach sank. It wasn't just obsession anymore. It felt like a threat. I knew we couldn't keep running forever. Melanie needed help, but more importantly, we needed to make sure she couldn't hurt us. But as I was contemplating our next move, I heard Sarah scream from the bathroom. I rushed in, and she pointed at the mirror, where words were scrawled in red lipstick. You belong to me. We hadn't heard a single sound. The doors were still locked. It was like Melanie was a ghost, slipping in and out without a trace. And the scariest part? Sarah couldn't remember locking the bathroom window before her shower. I knew then that we couldn't just wait for Melanie to strike again. We needed to confront her, find her before she found us. I just didn't know how far Melanie would go to prove her twisted version of love. After the bathroom incident, we knew we couldn't keep living in fear. I convinced Sarah to stay with her sister for a while, just to put some distance between her and Melanie. Reluctantly, she agreed, but it took a lot of reassurance. I promised I'd handle everything and keep her updated. Once Sarah was safely at her sister's, I started digging deeper. I knew Melanie had some personal issues, but I never truly understood the extent of her obsession. I needed answers, so I started by reaching out to people who knew her. I called Lisa, a mutual friend who had introduced Sarah and Melanie back in college. Has Melanie ever acted like this before? I asked. Lisa hesitated. Honestly, she's always been intense. Back when they were roommates, Melanie got really possessive. Once, when Sarah went on a date with some guy from her lit class, Melanie stayed up all night crying. The next morning, the guy's car tires were slashed. No one could prove it was her, but Sarah had her suspicions. That made my stomach drop. Did Sarah know how bad it was? I don't think so. Melanie always played it off like she was just protective. Sarah thought it was sweet at the time. It was starting to make sense. Melanie's obsession wasn't new, it had just been dormant for a while. But something had triggered it again. Maybe our marriage. Maybe seeing how happy Sarah and I were together. I decided to go one step further. I drove to Melanie's apartment, not really sure what I was hoping to find. Her car was in the lot, but the blinds were drawn tight. I knocked a few times, but there was no answer. As I was about to leave, an older woman from the neighboring unit poked her head out. You looking for Melanie? Yeah. Have you seen her lately? The woman frowned. She's been gone for a few days. I heard her arguing on the phone the night before she left. Sounded like she was really upset. Haven't seen her since. I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of relief and dread. If Melanie wasn't home, where was she? When I got back to my car, my phone buzzed with a notification from the security app. The motion detector had been triggered. I quickly pulled up the live feed and felt my heart race. Melanie was on our front porch, pacing back and forth. She was muttering to herself, something about Sarah being brainwashed and needing to be saved. Then she pulled out a can of spray paint and started scrawling on the door. The words made my blood run cold. I'll fix this. I'll make her see. I called the police and raced home, but by the time I got there, Melanie was gone. The police took the footage and promised to put out a notice, but they admitted they couldn't do much since technically she hadn't broken in. That night, I stayed at the house alone. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. Around 3 a.m., I heard a soft tapping on the window. I froze, listening, but it stopped. When I looked outside, there was no one there. I checked the cameras, nothing. I was starting to feel like I was losing my mind. Was Melanie messing with me, or was I just paranoid? The next morning, I called Sarah, trying to keep my voice steady. She was here again, I said. Sarah went quiet. I don't understand why she's doing this, she whispered. Me neither. But I'm going to figure it out. I promise. After hanging up, I sat down and tried to think logically. Melanie wasn't just acting on impulse anymore. This was calculated. She wanted to separate Sarah and me, and she was willing to scare us to make it happen. Just then, I got a text from an unknown number. You should have left her alone. Now it's too late. I tried calling the number back, but it was disconnected. My hands were shaking. I couldn't let Melanie keep controlling our lives. I had one last idea. I needed to confront Melanie face to face, but this time, I wasn't going in unprepared. I planned to record the entire interaction, to finally have undeniable proof of her obsession. But something deep inside told me that once I pushed Melanie into a corner, things might take a far darker turn than I was ready for.